A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, the battle for the future of money began. $150 trillion moves each year across Swift's rails. 30 megabanks form a new coalition. A programmable settlement network comes online, and an October ETF storm gathers at the horizon. Swift just announced today that they're moving from messaging to a blockchain based shared ledger with 30 plus global banks. And their first use case 24/7 cross border payments. This isn't crypto versus banks anymore. It's the assembly of a new financial order. Welcome to Crypto Wars Revenge of the Swift. What is up, everybody? Solomon here. Super excited to be with you all today. For a lot of the articles that we're reading, go and check out them at genfinity.io, and please give us a follow at genfinity.io as well for this news. But yes, you heard that correctly. Swift today just announced at Sibos, their annual event, they're essentially moving from a messaging network, obviously the world's biggest messaging network, where all the banks are and everything else, to a blockchain-based shared ledger with 30 plus global banks. And their first use case, real-time 24/7 cross-border payments. Chainlink today, on the same day, just dropped a deep dive into its multi-year partnership with Swift as the interoperability and Oracle engine behind banks connecting to any chain. Quant just announced today QuantNet, a programmable settlement network already powering UK tokenized deposits, DVP, PVP, and atomic workflows across legacy and digital rails. And October is set to be ETF month, where 16 final deadlines are stacked for altcoin spot ETFs under the SEC's new streamlined standards. Plus, Nik Bougalis, ex-Ripple XRPL engineering lead, just became Algorand's chief technology officer. The talent convergence is very real. But let's start with Swift. The empire evolves. Swift crosses into settlement, announces blockchain ledger. Swift isn't just the postman anymore. You can go check this article out at genfinity.io. Swift is not the postman anymore. In this official release, Swift says they are moving to add a blockchain-based shared ledger to their infrastructure. The first use case, real-time 24/7 cross-border payments. The ledger is designed to record, sequence, and validate transactions and enforce rules through smart contracts and facilitate the movement of regulated tokenized value across digital ecosystems. That's settlement language, not mere messaging anymore. And they're doing all of this with Consensys. Building the prototype, and 30 plus institutions are already sitting at the table with names like JP Morgan, Citibank, HSBC, Santander, Deutsche Bank, Wells Fargo, BNP Paribas, and many, many more. They actually have the entire smorgasbord of quotes on their official blog here. Scale check for you guys. If you're not aware, and I'm sure you are if you're here, Swift connects approximately 11,500 institutions, 200 countries. They move approximately $150 trillion a year. If Swift is the Death Star of global finance, this upgrade is the reactor core swap, always on settlement at planetary scale. Now, I want to get into this first. I'll go over some quotes here just so you guys don't have to. Well, I'm sure you'll read through this anyways. First use case, real-time 24/7 cross-border payments. There's another quote here. The ledger will record, quote, sequence, validate transactions, and enforce rules via smart contracts. Another quote, regulated tokenized value built for interoperability. And the bank quotes are explicit. BBVA calls out the ability to settle regulated value in real time, not just send messages. BNP Paribas mentions multi-currency atomic settlements. Citi says a robust 24/7 ledger enabling always-on payments and liquidity. That's settlement full stop. Let's talk a little bit about the Rebel Alliance since we're going to go with all Star Wars verbiage here. Chainlink and the connectivity engine. So on the same day that Swift announces this blockchain-based shared ledger, Chainlink drops a deep dive into the Swift and Chainlink partnership, unlocking the next evolution of global finance. This is not sponsored by anybody, by the way, but I'm presenting this nonetheless. All right, let's do a little bit of a roadmap deep dive here. Swift moving into settlement creates a new problem. Interoperability. Banks need a safe way to touch public and private chains alike, tokenized assets, and use the new ISO 20022 messaging standards. Enter Chainlink. Chainlink's blog recaps a 9-year journey with Swift, starting with a Sibos 2016 demo, which included smart contracts incorporating ISO 20022 messaging. And leading us all the way to 2023, cross-chain tokenized asset demos with Euroclear, Clearstream, Citibank, BNY Mellon, BNP Paribas, Lloyds, and SDX. And even more recent, 2024 corporate actions projects with Swift, Euroclear, UBS, Wellington, standardizing events data and delivering it via Swift messaging and cross blockchains using CCIP, the cross-chain interoperability protocol out of Chainlink. Today, Chainlink underscores that banks can connect any public or private chain via Swift plus Chainlink, bringing on-chain programmability to off-chain settlement flows. Translation: Swift's new ledger and Chainlink's interoperability plus oracles will allow banks one access point to the entire digital asset galaxy without ripping out core systems or infrastructure. All right, big enough as that is, and I'll go through a little recap here. Swift launches or announces blockchain-based ledger. And this is literally not saying a blockchain-based ledger. It is just saying blockchain-based ledger. Looks like they're adding in blockchain to their infrastructure. And for additional context here, I do not think this has anything to do with Ripple, anything to do with the XRP ledger. I do think that XRP, obviously, as with any other crypto ecosystem or digital asset, can play a role in the future. For settlement, if it happens to be the most efficient settlement asset in certain exotic corridors or for last mile things like that. But I just see a lot of posts out there today that are like, they're using XRP. It's like, no, we've seen everything basically say that they're not. That's not to say that they won't. It's just to say that I do not think this is built on the XRP ledger or some secret bunker version of the XRPL either. All right, so moving forward here, while Swift and Chainlink align rails and bridging and interoperability and all that jazz, Quant just rolled out QuantNet, which they deem as a programmable settlement network that orchestrates money and asset flows across tokenized deposits. Think bank stablecoins, public chains, and legacy real-time gross settlement, as well as renewed real-time gross settlement with atomic settlement, DVP, PVP, rollbacks, and ISO 20022 reporting, all baked into one QuantNet, as they're framing it here. They even name some of their integrations, including tokenized money rails with Lloyds, GBP wallets, UK GBTD tokenized deposits. They even mentioned JPM here. Asset platforms such as HSBC, Orion, Euroclear, and Ethereum. Legacy rails such as real-time gross settlement, Crest, target 2 systems so banks don't have to tear out anything to join. Critically within this, Quant says the architecture already underpins what they just announced over the past couple of days, UK sterling tokenized deposits, which they literally just announced end of last week, which is a new market infrastructure initiative. Now, major UK banks are planning to leverage that in live environments. That's not a white paper, what we're looking at this point in time. This is production. This is operationalization, as we've talked about before. So what do we talk about so far? Swift's ledger, which they've talked about moving from messaging to settlement. QuantNet, or programmable orchestration. Money rails, asset networks, real-time gross settlement. Chainlink spanning across as an interoperability layer. Pretty massive stuff just coming out today. I want to get into this too. October shaping up to be the liquidity ignition for crypto wars, as we'll frame it. Mixing infrastructure with market access, the SEC just approved generic listing standards over the past few weeks for spot digital asset ETFs, cutting launch times to approximately 75 days and removing case-by-case bottlenecks for products that meet the standardized criteria. Multiple outlets say October is now the final decision month for 16 crypto ETFs, including Solana, XRP, Litecoin, Dogecoin. I believe Hedera is in here as well. You can read this through genfinity.io. Also, October is shaping up as a pivotal month for crypto ETF decisions. Timelines, impacts, you get the picture. All right. If Swift and Chainlink and Quant are the rails, ETFs are the fuel trucks. Liquidity supercycle territory if several go live events happen in quick succession here in October. And then touching base again on XRP and then some of the conspiracy stuff, which I will say one thing. There has been a lot of conspiracy stuff that has come to fruition that I think is pretty interesting over the years. I do not think Swift necessarily falls in that corridor. I've seen a lot of kind of claims today that are like literally, I believe that there's a secret stockpile of XRP and that Swift's going to turn stuff on and everything else. Okay, that's great. But like, I believe that XRP, I still hold the XRP that I've held forever. I'm bullish on XRP. I believe XRP is going to do well because XRP has utility and it's needed to do well, maybe in certain corridors or whatever. I don't think that there's some secret bunker underneath Swift's headquarters where there's some secret switch that they're going to turn on and they're going to switch over the entire Swift system to the XRP ledger. I don't think that that's realistic. I think that most of the powers that be in global finance, after being in this space for long enough, to have interviewed a lot of these entities and stuff like that, I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they're upgrading these systems. I think they're leveraging crypto and blockchain where it makes sense. But Swift's own ledger announcement, live quotes from global banks, and an explicit plan to record, sequence, validate transactions, and enforce rules. That's a lot of that sounds to me like Swift's evolving, not necessarily collapsing, regardless if you like it or not. I'm still bullish on XRP, but for reasons that don't necessarily require conspiracy, even though, hey, they're entertaining here and there. I think XRP will win out because it is highly liquid and for multitudes of other reasons, and probably the corridors that have already been built out. So anyways, as we close out here, one last thing that I found interesting today, and I guess this ties a little bit of XRPL stuff in. Shout out to the Algorand ecosystem for bringing on Nik Bougalis. He just joined the Algorand Foundation as the new CTO. For some of you guys that may be aware, John Woods, who's a legendary guy, stepped down as CTO. John Woods came from the Cardano ecosystem, like instrumental in building out Cardano. Moved into Algorand, stepped down, and another individual that was instrumental on a ledger that we've talked about the vast majority of the time on this channel, Nik Bougalis, XRP Ledger, one of Ripple's top engineering talents, is now the CTO at the Algorand Foundation. So while rails assemble across crypto, talent is converging, and mandate to push decentralization, security, and enterprise performance. Multi-chain is in theory. It's where top builders are choosing to operate, as you can see on here. But Bougalis will support Algorand's position as the blockchain of choice for U.S. enterprise and institutions seeking secure, compliant, scalable infrastructure. Thought that was pretty cool. So put all of this together, you've got Swift announcing a blockchain-based shared ledger, the settlement record for regulated tokenized value at global scale. That's got to be one of the biggest kind of announcements validating crypto technology that we've ever seen, and probably one of the biggest announcements in the past handful of decades from the traditional financial system standpoint. You literally have the world's largest kind of financial entity, Swift, that operates, as we mentioned, trillions for global messaging between these banks, and a lot of the validation between Nostro and Vostro stuff between these banks as well. The world's messaging system says that they're going blockchain as infrastructure, which is pretty crazy. Not surprising, though. As a sidebar, the ISO 20022 stuff, which I know a lot of people use under the purview of like crypto coins and stuff. And I did a pretty cool deep dive on that too. Found it that there was some native crypto coin stuff with ISO 20022 like a month ago, but that's like one of the first times we've actually seen that. But ISO 20022, the messaging stance, the kind of unification of messaging goes live, or the deadline I think is November. I think it's been pushed out for some entities too. But anyways, Swift announcing Swift Ledger is massive. Chainlink, kind of doing a deep dive of the history between Swift and Chainlink is pretty cool. I should also mention Swift Sibos right now. The invite only entities that were unable to go there. The invite only the Swift Sibos, I believe, was like Hedera, XDC network, and maybe I forget one other network. I want to say Quant actually. You guys correct if I was wrong, but that's ongoing right now. So I'm excited to see if there's anything out of Hedera or XDC or Quant that we see too. But tied all together, pretty massive day. And the Death Star of global finance is being rebuilt. And this time it doesn't just send messages, it settles value. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give genfinity.io a look and some of these articles and at genfinity.io on X. I'll talk to you guys when I talk to you. Thanks. Bye.